Tableau can work with some really large and complex data sets. However, when creating a data visualization, it is important to focus on a specific area. Quite often, less is more when it comes to producing effective data visualizations. Filtering is one basic and fundamental technique for achieving this result. In this lecture, we will look at various options Tableau provides for filtering data in your dataset. So for the examples, we'll use the same sample superstore subset file, Excel version, and we'll look at the orders again. So we'll drag orders up into the main area. Remember, we can actually provide filtering at the data source level. So up in the top right corner, there's an option to add a filter. Filters are not specified, so we'll be getting all the data. But at this point, we can actually add a filter, and Tableau allows us to filter based on any of the fields that are in the underlying data set. So let's choose, for example, customer segment. Click OK. And what Tableau's actually done is examine that field, customer segment, and it's providing us with some options for filtering. So these are all the potential options we can, or potential values that are in that field. So let's say we choose just the corporate customer segment. We'll click OK. Click OK again. So that will actually reduce the number of records that are coming into the workbook. So right now we're filtering right at the data source level. We can go back to the filter and we can add more filters. So we can actually have a compound filter. So for example, if we wanted to have corporate type customers and look at specific product category, let's say technology only, we can do that, and that further reduces the number of records coming into the workbook. So if we were to go to worksheet and drag customer segment, you can see it's only corporate, and the product category is technology only. Now, I personally like to don't like to specify filters right at the source level because it's better to have more data in your workbook to work with. However, that's not always practical, and just depending on your requirements, you may need to do this at this level. So in this case, I might remove product category, but we'll leave customer segment, the corporate one. Okay, so with that one filter specified, we'll go back to the worksheet and we'll show you the second way of doing the filtering within the workbook itself. So the second option for filtering data is directly in the workbook itself. So at the moment, our orders is actually already filtered. So let's make it a bit more explicit. I will call this orders corporate customers. So we know that actually that's only a subset of the orders that from the data source. It's a bit more obvious. So let's do some analysis around the corporate customers. So for this exercise, we want to look at a more focused area of our sales within the corporate customer segment. So what that really means is actually looking at a particular product category. So specifying the filter at the workbook level is as easy as dragging the field onto the filters shelf, which prompts you to specify a filter. So in this case, we can, product category, there's 3 different types, and let's choose technology. Now, depending on the data type and data role, whether it's discrete or continuous, whether it's a dimension or a measure, you will get slightly different filtering options. In this case, product category is effectively a text field or a label or a dimension, if you will, depending on what terminology you're familiar with, which means that it's effectively just a list of values that we can choose from. With that list, we can choose from available options that Tableau provides, but in some cases, For example, if I was to drag a product name, that list becomes quite big, so we have a couple other options to do that. So we can actually specify wildcard, and we can say any product that has a product name starting with A, B, and C, or ends with such and such, or contains a particular thing. So this is using a wildcard to specify a filter. Once filter is in place, we can click on a drop down and go to the filter option, which brings back up the prompt. And in here we can change the filter. The other option here that's kind of good to know about is the exclude option. So in this case, we're actually selecting technology, but we can do the opposite. We can actually exclude technology. So in this case, it will bring all the furniture and office supplies, but it will exclude technology. So, for example, you might have a list that has got an unknown value you might want to exclude, or a specific not applicable value, or depending on your data. But it's good to know about that one. The other two things that you can specify here are the condition and top. So these are more complex filters which filter your data based on an expression. So in this case, we can, under condition, we can say, give us all the product categories, for example, where total sum of sales exceeds $50,000, for example. So what Tableau will do, it will actually aggregate data and total up the sales at the product category level. Then it will see which product categories got more than that, and it will filter based on that. Now that's a fairly dynamic filter, so that means that if your Tableau workbook gets refreshed, that means that this filter, you might get results changing, on a day-to-day basis, for example. The other option is the top, which is similar to condition because, again, it's an expression. It's just using a slightly different aggregation formula, I guess. You can say, give us all the top 10 product categories where, and order it by sum of sales. So we want to know the top 10 categories by sum of sales. You can also specify your own formula in here. So these are basic sort of aggregations that come with Tableau, but you can actually make it a bit more complex by top 10 product categories by, and then you can specify the whole formula using a calculator field and all the various functions that are available within Tableau. So you can get quite a sophisticated and complex filter happening if you need to. Okay, so I'll leave this as is. So product category, let's just confirm it's technology. And let's do some analysis. So at the moment, we're just focusing on corporate customers and technology products. Let's look at sales. Let's look at across time. Maybe we'll split it into different quarters. And maybe we'll choose different subcategory as a color, which should show us a breakdown by subcategory. Now, subcategories, it's a little bit busy and might want to actually focus on a specific subcategory, so we can drag subcategory up into the filter. Now, one thing when you're actually having multiple filters, what you can do, if you actually notice here that the list contains subcategories that are not related to a technology category, so appliances, binders, bookcases. In this case, ones that are related to technology are selected, but the list is quite long. So one nice feature that Tableau provides is this button right here, which you can use to show fewer values. If you click on that, what Tableau does, it does a little query in the background and brings back items in this field or product subcategory, in our case, that are related to the already selected filter. So in this case, we just have 4 potential values as opposed to the whole big list. Okay, so let's get rid of a couple of things that we may not be interested in. Let's say office machines and copiers and fax are our business, and that's what we want to know. So click on OK, and we can see now, just for those two subcategories, our sales across time effectively. What I might want to do also, I'll just increase, just to make it a bit more visible, and I also put sales onto the label so we can actually see what's going on. And I might change sales, the default property, the number format. We know that it's currency, so we'll just make it a dollar sign and format it nicely. And the other thing I might want to do, because I can see that some data is missing. So for example, Q2 is missing copiers and fax value. I might want to present that as a continuous type measure as opposed to discrete. So we briefly mentioned that the type of filter you can specify depends on the properties of the field that you're using. So whether it's a dimension or a measure, whether it's a string or date or numeric field, whether it's discrete or continuous, you will have slightly different options to do your filtering on. So we'll illustrate that with an example of using a date type field. So at the moment we're looking at 4 different years. We're looking at, we're not filtering the data based on the date at all. So let's specify the order date filter. Now, when we drag the order date across, we are prompted with a slightly different option for selecting the filter because it's a date field. We can specify relative date, range of dates, or we can specify specific values. So let's select relative date. So what this does, it allows us to specify a range of dates relative to a particular anchor or a particular point in time. By default, the anchor is set to today. So if we were to select, let's say, quarters, what I can do, I can actually change the anchor and make that, it's just so we can see some more data. I'll make that the 1st of January 2013. And this will give us the last 6 quarters relative to 1st of January 2013. Okay, so this shows the quarter of order date. Now, these labels are not, these headings are not very useful, so I'll just get rid of the year for now and change the quarter to be to have a slightly better display. And now we can see quarter and a year that the quarter is in, and we're looking at the last 6 quarters relative to 1st of January 2013. One handy thing you can include in your charts and visualization is the caption. So if you go up to the worksheet and include, click on Show Caption, the caption basically gathers all the information from your filters, columns, rows, and marks, and displays it. So if you include this within your chart and publish it, your users will know what is actually being selected. So this, so all the filtering information or specifications we did are actually included within this caption. So it talks about the category, the date filter, and the product subcategory. Now this chart shows us the last 6 quarters relative to a particular date. The other date options are specifying a range of dates. You can specify starting and ending date, and you can also have a special where we can exclude nulls and not nulls dates, not null dates. Okay, the other thing, the other option related to dates is specify specific values. So if I click on years, I can actually use a use the year component of the data as a label, so we can actually specify a particular value, 2013. Now, thing to keep in mind is that all filters act together, so the condition must be met for all the filters for the data to be included in the report. So in effect, we have an and between each of the filters. So in this case, all three have to be true. If you need to do a more complex or expressions or conditions, you probably have to resort to creating a particular calculated field within a dimension or a measure, then using that as your filter. Now we'll cover calculated fields later on in our lectures. Another handy option table provides is the quick filter functionality. This is a quicker way of adding and modifying filters to your charts. It also allows end users the ability to control the filter when dashboards are published. So for example, if we wanted to include a region filter on this chart, we can click on a drop down and show quick filter, which adds a filter to the chart. There's a few things we can do with a quick filter. We can edit it, format it, so fonts and colors and so forth. The one thing that's quite useful is being able to display filter in a different format, I guess. At the moment it's multiple values list, but we can actually have a single value drop-down list, for example, so we can use it like that. So again, depending on your data, you need to think about what sort of format you want for your filter, whether it's possible to include multiple values or just single. You can also have a multi-value drop-down if you want to save some space on your page. So the last thing I really wanted to show is that the fact that we can also create filters based on your measures. So let's say we use discount as an example. We can bring it up into a filter. And again, depending on the type of the field, we are prompted with different options. In this case, with measures, we actually can use different types of aggregations or all values, and there are even some statistical formulas we can apply to the filtering. Let's just do an average. So in this case, tables examine the underlying data. You can see that the range is between 0.2, so 2%, and 7.3%. Let's say we want anything that's over 5%. So now we can see the total value of sales in particular quarters. So the total number of sales in a particular quarter across time in a particular region for 2013, a list of categories and subcategories has been selected as well.